Good morning. Gonna try this out right now. Let's test this stream. Good morning. Alright, I can hear myself on Facebook, so that is working. Let's test it out on Twitch. I see myself on Twitch. Working. Let's test it out. And I hear myself on Twitch. Awesome. Alright, well, if you think I look ridiculous, it's because I do. But that's because I made this, and I'm pretty proud of this. If you guys were wondering what this image was on the title card screen for today's stream, that is the 3D model in ZBrush. That was the idea that then I printed into reality. So this is kind of the suit that I made for an underwater shoot where I decided to become Aquaman. So I'll kind of like give you a little bit of a background on the project, and then I'll move on to something else because this one's done and I got many more projects to show you, many more projects to do. However, a bunch of you had requested last week or 3 weeks ago when I did my last stream that I should do my next stream wearing the outfit. I don't think I'm gonna pull that off the entire way. But I'll keep it on for the first part of it. Shane, Jake, good to see you. I'm glad people are getting a kick out of my superhero outfit. That's true, I guess. How often do you get a superhero, a bona fide real-life superhero, to stream for you guys? Not that often. Okay. I'm going to make sure I log in on Twitch and Facebook so I can hear and see both of you guys, well, all of you, everyone's chats. I'm watching comments. Feel free to ask any questions. Cool. All right, with the due diligence done, I can kind of keep going with the stream. So, yeah, like I said, I didn't actually. My name is Aiman Akhtar. For those of you new to my stream, I've streamed about 5 or 6 times for ZBrush now. And I was on a hiatus for the past couple of weeks because I had gone to China. And I was visiting a factory there that was doing production, mass production for some toys that I made, or I'm making. So I'll tell you all about that trip and share some of the background information and then why I went to China and then how I ended up getting into mass production for toys shortly. But first I wanted to kind of give you a primer on this project because I'm wearing it. And nice PJs. Thanks, Alex. And so let me just give you a background on what this thing was about. Let's see. You guys can hear me all right clearly, and questions are coming through chat, so I'll get to those as soon as I can. Let's go. Here we go. All right, so this idea all came about. Let me make the screen a little bit tinier so you can see more of the photos. So this idea started with, you know, a very simple image. I went to Palm Springs with a bunch of friends here. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a professional 3D artist here. And I went to Palm Springs and we did like a little GoPro underwater shoot, my wife and I, late at night, where I kind of took this image and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a whole armor and like be Aquaman? Because I've historically been pretty bad at swimming and terrified of water. Like even in the lakes in Chicago where I grew up, I was scared of sharks. So I thought, well, this is a great way to get over that fear by becoming a damn superhero. And the way to do that, I thought, would be to make a whole suit. So the suit is a bunch of different pieces and prints, but I'll show you how I went from point A to point F or D. So that was the start of it. It was just the idea. And then in making that reality, I started by simply doing a bunch of ZBrush sketches until I came upon more of a final concept. So this is the kind of final concept that I landed on in ZBrush, sculpting a bunch of different scale patches, and this is all kind of design phase. So none of this is actually printable except for the trident. The trident was printable, printed in 4 pieces, and if you watch previous streams you can see more of that. And the outfit here, it's made up of a whole bunch of parts. So you've got the belt, this abs piece, the chest pieces, the deltoid pieces, and then the forearm pieces. All of those were printed separately. So I think in all, it's like 14 prints to make this whole thing happen. And none of this existed like a month ago. And then within the month, I printed all of this stuff, put all of this stuff onto my clothing, and recruited every person I could, including my wife and her sisters visiting, to help me sew this onto the outfit. And the top as well, this piece, is kind of like an Infinity Gauntlet, you know, from the, it's kind of a crossover thing, DC Marvel thing. The Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos, I just made a Infinity Gorget out of it. And so that's what that was. And that kind of comes on as like the neck piece. So it kind of unifies the whole outfit together rather than just leaving this area completely open. Aha. So basically, here's all the pieces you can see kind of laid out before they're even stitched on. I bought this shirt, looked kind of superhero-y. I bought some really fun tights, which I'd never worn before. And then I started printing pieces. So here's the trident pieces I printed, and I printed the various scales. For the scales, I actually ended up getting a 3D scan of myself, like a really quick and shitty 3D scan done really fast, just using mobile iPhone photos. And if you watch previous streams, I talk a lot more in detail about that process. I then went about actually sculpting the final scales that would get printed on that scan, thinking about the flow of the actual muscles underneath and how the scale should flow, and the various scales and sizing of it all. Looking at a whole bunch of concept art the entire time, because good reference makes good costumes. A lot of funny reference on the internet. But it's kind of on us to wade through all that and come up with the final pieces. In the end, I landed on the costume that you guys have already seen me wearing, and I can show you some more final images. Let's see here. Pretty sure I have a folder here which has all of the final. You know what? I'm actually going to do you one better. I'm going to go to my email and I'm going to pull up the actual final photos from the underwater photo shoot. What was this underwater photo shoot I speak of? Well, I have a friend, Jess Drew, and she did a underwater workshop with Brett Stanley, the underwater photographer. This was a few weeks back, actually almost 3 weeks back now, on 23rd June. And Jess has done lots and lots of underwater shoots, so it was really good to have her coach me while I was doing all of this stuff underwater. But I didn't know how any of this would go because I'd never done an underwater shoot before. And making a cosplay suit is one thing, but then taking underwater photography, doing the modeling, is its own separate thing. So learning all about that was really cool. And then Brett has done a lot of underwater photo shoots. You can see he's got quite the portfolio. So when I saw this opportunity and I had a month to get everything done, I hustled. Let's see here. I'm going to pull up the gallery and show you guys some stuff. Alright, Alex Chapman saying, I missed the previous stream. Can you tell us the printer you use and what settings did you send to a 3D printing facility? So I printed all of this stuff myself, Alex, and all of these parts are FDM prints. They've been spray painted after the fact, so it's hard to, you know, see the original print quality. But they were all printed on FDM. this one right here, the Raise 3D N2 Plus. So this is a 12-inch by 12-inch by 24-inch build volume printer, priced at about $3,500 or so. It's the same price range as the Form 2, which is the stereolithography printer I use. Those are my main in-house printers. One for detail and fine resolution, printing about a 6 to 7-inch build volume, and the other one much larger build volume, much cheaper prints, just for prototyping and doing stuff like this because I can. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. All right, got the gallery almost pulled up, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, so here it is. So here are photos from the underwater shoot that Brett took. We took a whole bunch of photos, so there's a lot to sift through. Keep in mind, this is my first time doing an underwater photo shoot, so a lot of these look horrible and cheesy, but that's kind of the nature of doing things for the first time, and that's why you do it for the first time, just to be cheesy. So basically, there's a lot to think about when doing an underwater photo shoot. You've got to actually sync. So that was the first thing. I actually had to sync down, and the print wouldn't let me sync because all of these scales are hollow, and the trident was hollow. So when I was trying to get into the water, everything was just, it was fighting me. And it took me a while to just get under the water. And when I finally got all of this filled with water and I was able to start sinking, then I had to learn to hold my breath in a very specific way, because you have to find your neutral buoyancy. And this is actual terminology that Brett used and Jessica, that you have to hold your breath and then let air out until you get to the area where you're not quite sinking all the way to the bottom, but you're not floating, all the way to near the top either. So you have to find that neutral buoyancy. And then you have to kind of sink all the way to the bottom of the pool and then bounce. And then that little bounce that you do is the perfect photography time, because that's what allows your hair to just kind of flare up a little. And then you get really cool shots like this, where your hair's kind of coming up. So I took a whole bunch of funny shots. There's some shots right at the surface. There's shots at the bottom of the pool looking up. And all of these are going to be retouched. I'm going to make, like, the stones glow. And it should be pretty cool when finally done. What's cool about doing an underwater shoot, especially for this kind of, just cosplay outfit, is that you really get to feel like the character. You really get to be, an actor. And then you get to, get feedback from pros. I highly recommend doing this with a professional if you do it. Don't just jump in a pool. And then just playing around, like this one's actual blue steel, like it's underwater, it's blue steel. If you guys don't catch the reference, that's from Zoolander. So I believe I made I picked a few that I liked a lot, and these are the ones that I'm having the photographer Brett Stanley retouch, just because they're, I feel like, the best photos from the shoot. This one's awesome because you see, like, as I smash the trident down through the water, all the bubbles coming up. This one's just like, I'm actually feeling like at home under the water. And then the profile shot moving along the side. So all of these kind of have their own, thing going for them. So that's why I picked these 5. And then the rest I'll end up retouching myself or, figuring it out later. I should have these finished probably in a few more weeks because Brett's got to take his time. He's got a bunch of clients ahead of me. But yeah, that was the whole entirety of this project. So I wanted to show you guys 3D printing ideas to reality, something I worked up over the past month from scratch to finished completion. And let's see, I think I have one other thing in this project, which is the finished. Okay. Let's see. I think I retouched one of them myself, so I can show you the finished retouching, what I'm going for. All right. Suit looks great. Thank you very much, Hyperion Armory. Kurt Boutier saying, I feel so underdressed. Kurt, come on. You can make a superhero suit. All right, so here's the finished kind of retouching final image that I'd be going for this suit. Much more saturated, much more fun and not taking itself seriously than DC a lot of the times does. They kind of go really dark these days. But I just thought it would be fun to give, like, you know, Aquaman, who's kind of been the redheaded stepchild of superheroes, like the underwater superhero that people make fun of, and give him the Infinity Stones. And yeah, overpowered Aquaman. I thought it would be a fun concept, so I did it. So someone's asking here, let's see, Mr. Animation, how'd you get your start in the 3D world? This is a fun thing I do sometimes. You guys can kind of see yourself, tunnel vision style. But okay, I'm watching the chat, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in there. So how did I get my start in the 3D world? That's a kind of hard question to unpack because I've been doing this for a while. You can see my site, aiman3d.com, and in the 3D print sculpture section, you can see a bunch of different projects that I've worked on. So I've been doing 3D art for almost 10 years or more. I started in Chicago as a generalist, commercials, advertising, and then I made the move to LA about 4 years ago. Since then, I've tried to brand myself more as a 3D printing artist in addition to being a modeler because there's a lot of modelers in this town. So just having that ability to do 3D printing landed me a lot of fun gigs. This one at Alliance Studios, for example, doing the very large-scale sculptures for Overwatch. Then another one, which is a cool one, was the stop motion animation at Robot Chicken Studios, Stupid Buddy Studios. So these are all assets for stop motion animation that got printed and then used as the actual puppets and parts for the print. So you know what? That's actually a great way to segue. So you guys are interested in learning about 3D printing for stop motion animation and other stuff about how I got started. My friend and boss from Stupid Buddy, Kay, recently got an awesome video done for EnvisionTech and Stupid Buddy. So I'm going to play this video for you guys while I change out of this outfit because I'm not doing the whole stream wearing this. All right, so I'm going to play this video. Let's see if you guys can see that. And I'm going to shrink down the stream thing for a sec. And let's try this out.
By utilizing 3D printing, we're able to tell a story about superheroes and love and conflict and action and adventure. There is no feel like the feel of stop motion if you want to create something from your head and it doesn't exist and it can't exist. You animate it. Be super cool, be super cool. At Stupid Buddy Studios, we create a lot of stop motion animation that comes in the form of TV shows such as Robot Chicken, Buddy Thunderstark, and Super Lantern, as well as things like commercials and short spots. Within the last 3 years, we've incorporated 3D printing into the fabrication pipeline. The EnvisionTech printer has been great for us because we can make aesthetic changes much faster than heavily hand sculpted them. That's one less step that a puppet fabricator would have to take on.
With 3D printing, we're able to save a lot of time. It's already all broken down, fits together, works the way you want it to.
The factory printer has been great due to its ease of use. And it's also extremely consistent results. Sometimes we do characters with things like really fine crow's feet around their eyes, or hair detail, and scales, things like that. And R5 Gray has served our purposes for both getting that really beautiful amount of detail, but then also lasting throughout the stop motion animation process. for a show like Stopmotion 3, we have 3D printed a large majority of the show. Pretty much most of what you see on a lot of the theme characters is 3D printed except for the fabric. To be able to print all of their accessories, we are running the printer twice a day, every day.
Even loving the old school techniques as much as I have, I would definitely say that a show on the scale of Supermansion would not have been able to be done with the budgets and timelines without 3D printing.
Stop motion is the oldest form of animation, and it really ties in the imagination with the real world. And once you see the characters come to life, there's nothing else like that.
All right. So I felt like that was a really cool video, so I wanted to share it with you guys. I got to help out on Supermansion a few years back, sculpting a few of these characters for 3D print and using the EnvisionTEC printer to print them out, and pet Bobby here very often whenever he was at work. So the EnvisionTEC per factory is a beast of a machine. It's kind of the same tech as a Form 2, just a much higher price point and much finer results. The support cleanup is minimal. It's like super easy to kind of, not easy, but it's much easier than a Form 2 to actually just pop off the supports and do the post-processing. So that's a very cool printer, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit on that. So I got to do, a bit of 3D printing for stop motion, large-scale 3D printing, as I already mentioned. Over the past 4 years, I've worked on, vinyl toys and prototyping a whole toy line. I've got to work on 3D printing for concept art, helping set up the print lab at Aaron Sims Creative. So there was a lot of different types of prints there. I got to print the Demogorgon and just do a lot of different trophies and like whatnot for my own business that I run, 3D Smiths, where I help people turn their 2D stuff into 3D. I got so much cool stuff that I'm doing through my business that it's all often, unfortunately, NDA, so I can't show you, even though I've got some very cool prints like right here. Here's a mask I made for my dog Kuma, and that kind of went viral on Reddit. So it's kind of a mix between 3D printing as personal projects and fun stuff and professional projects, because the technology is constantly evolving, so you have to keep challenging yourself. You have to keep pushing the limits of what you can do and what you can make. I also started my own toy line with my wife, Fa, and it's called Fungosaurs, little dinosaur mushroom hybrids. And those were all 3D printed out. Those were all prototyped. And then we made the entire kind of prototype set. So this is the pitch that we did for a Kickstarter last year. I can show you guys that. Kickstarter. And search for Fungosaurs. All right, so basically, back in November, we did a pitch, my wife and I, for a Kickstarter that was fortunately funded with a bunch of help from friends and family and random strangers, and to launch a blind box toy line of our own. And we made a whole backstory, animated it, made a bunch of 8 different species, took a lot of photos all over the place to kind of help the marketing, and planned everything out for people, had the printed prototypes painted, and so and we're also building an augmented reality app to go along with the game, with the toys, and a whole bunch of miscellaneous products. So I think our presentation was really professional and on point, which is what helped us get funded. Also, just having the background and ability to show that I've done a lot of 3D printing. I showed these at DesignerCon about 2 years ago, and that was the start of the process back in 2016 to kind of launch my own toy line, just to see how people would like them, just engage with them. And we got a lot of good response, and everyone wanted the painted ones. At this point in 2016, I was selling the unpainted, just prints, just cleaned up and ready to go. But even though we sold quite a few of those, we made enough to basically cover the expo table, which for me is a success. Everyone kept wanting the painted ones, so that's when I decided, okay, I've got to figure out mass production and get the ball rolling on factories. So I contacted several factories, got several quotes, and then at the end, I actually started working with one which gave me a pretty good facsimile of my original that they could do via painting. And so I decided to go with them, and we got the Kickstarter funded, and then put a bunch of money on our own. And now we're getting all the toys made, which is why I went to China last week entirely to kind of QC everything. So having that background as a 3D generalist working in Chicago on advertising, being able to model, texture, rig, animate, uh, work the entire process helped me, kind of start making my own app, helped me get into, toy production and just run with it because I could do so much of the process. So here's some info on the app. In any case, I'm not going to talk your ear off about this. I think you're more interested in the actual printing and prototyping side. So I'm going to switch gears and talk about this now. Let's see, any other questions here? Yeah, you see the poster behind me? Yeah, that's from the, I think, original Kickstarter, actually. The first poster for Fungusaurus. Mr. Animation's asking, when you moved to LA, did you already have work or did you have to submit work and freelance? I did not have a job when I moved to LA. It was a big risk, I guess, coming from Chicago, from a stable job to here. But I had just gotten married and I had taken a vacation, and I was like clear-headed and thinking that the opportunities for the kinds of work that I was going for didn't exist in Chicago. It was very advertising and commercial heavy, some pharmaceuticals, but there was maybe only one game company that I really wanted to work at, which was Midway Games at the time and NetherRealm Studios that make Mortal Kombat. I actually got hired at Midway Games, and then they closed the doors within a month, so that was a bummer. I didn't even get to actually step in the door beyond the interview because it had already closed. They opened back up like a year later as NetherRealm and kept working on the Mortal Kombat games. But that just showed me in Chicago how limited the employment field was. I feel like now there's more companies moving to Chicago, but that was the decision I made to come to LA and then just start working in entertainment here. I was able to transition into VFX work pretty easily because I had that commercial background. So I got to take some of the stuff that I'd been doing, kind of like the Harley Davidson work I'd done in Chicago and like the commercial stuff, and that plugged in pretty easily into working in VFX for commercials in LA, Method Studio, PSYOP, Proof. So I did that for a little while, and then I started moving more towards toys and animation because I feel like that's kind of where my heart is more. It's more about it's more creating something that I think people have a emotional connection with over advertising, for example. Because in advertising, the way I feel is it's definitely a really cool place to work. It's collaborative. It's a lot of fun, but a lot of the stuff you do, it's once it's shipped, it's done. No one cares. But if you do illustration and animation, oftentimes the stuff you get to work on has an emotional connection with people, and that's kind of what I want to get into more. So that's something that I've been pushing for more in my career, is going more in the toys and animation route, and I prefer stylized stuff. So that's kind of primer on my career in any case. Let's see. Sean Lake is saying messages on YouTube aren't getting to you, or at least they don't seem to be. I'm not sure which messages on YouTube you're talking about, Sean. If you want to message me, Facebook is a better way to go, or even Instagram. I'm checking those more than Facebook, than YouTube. But I'll try to check YouTube. I'm not really sure which ones you're talking about. All right, let's see. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways I can go with the rest of this stream, since I've started with kind of a primer and catching up on the Aquaman project and my Fungusaurus project. Where I'm at right now with Fungusaurus is I just got back, so I can start talking about the factories and start talking about that entire process if you guys are interested. Let's see. All right. Let's see here. Just checking out your questions in the chat. Okay, cool. So let me pull up some photos from my trip, and I can show you guys a bit more of all of that stuff. I haven't, fortunately, I haven't had time to organize a lot of these photos, so I'm just going to kind of wing it, kind of like I did with the Aquaman stuff. Just having time to actually organize stuff to show on a stream is a bit of a challenge when you're constantly working and pushing. But I've got so many photos here that shouldn't be too hard. All right, so this is me and my friend Mike. Mike is a good friend of mine from SAIC back in Chicago. We went to college together, and he lives in Taiwan. So when I was going to China to start meeting with toy factory people and then seeing all the products that they've been working on for me, I wanted to get a friend who speaks Chinese, and Mike has been learning Chinese for 12 years. So, and he's super charming. So it was really nice to have a friend that I could say, hey, come to China with me. And Mike jumped on the chance, and we went together on this epic journey where I went from here to Taipei, then Hong Kong, and then we went from Hong Kong to Shenzhen, and we took a car from Shenzhen, crossed the border into mainland China, which I had to get a visa for. From mainland China, then we took a train from near Shenzhen to Shantou, Guangdong region, where the factory is. There's actually a whole bunch of factories in that town. It's called Shantou. It's like a toy town, really. There's so many factories there. It's ridiculous. You can't throw a stone without hitting a toy factory. I think I've got some photos. This is literally just driving around, and you can see a toy factory out the window. Here, driving a little bit further, it's a different toy factory. Driving a little bit further, there's a different toy factory. Actually, I think that one was the same as the last one. But you get the idea. Like, just driving around this town, it's a whole town dedicated to toy factories. So people were asking me how come I'm going to China to produce some of my toys this time around. And the answer was very simple. They've been working on their technology for a long time. They've got the resources in place. They can hit the price cost for an independent artist to be able to produce his own line, and they can hit the quality. So that's kind of really, it was a obvious decision. Let's see. So there was a lot of really cool things I can share with you about Shantou and doing this process. Let me pull up some more images and run through these. So I got to visit a showroom where I could see a lot of different toy manufacturers work. And that was really inspiring. Let me see if I can pull up. Here we go. So it's kind of like Toy Fair all the time. So this is a warehouse called CBH, and it's a showroom where you can walk in. There's aisles and aisles and aisles and rows of toys that people have saved. How should I explain this? See, these are different factories that have rented booths in the CBH showroom, and they show off the products that they can make. And so you can roll through with a shopping cart, and you can basically pick, okay, so these guys, this factory here makes Connect robots. And so you can pick out a toy and fill a shopping cart with it and keep moving along. And at the end of the whole, showroom process, here we go. So there's just aisles and aisles, just rows and rows of different expo booths. And there's no one even manning this stuff. So you can basically go get the toy, and at the end of the process, someone will, take all these toys that you've gathered, and they'll scan the barcodes, and you can take photos and references, and then they'll tell you the names of the factories that produced all this stuff. They'll tell you the address of the factories and give you the contact information. So you can actually contact the factory about making some of your own products similar to the ones that they can do, because they can show their portfolio in a way of what they can make. So like dinosaur hand puppets, dinosaur, like articulated toys, like everything I could think of for, that would be relevant to me, I started grabbing up. And I think I took some videos here. That's why it's like all over the place. And they feed you. So Shantou is pretty famous for their goose. So we got some really good goose. So if you guys are curious about how to even go about finding a factory and getting into toy production, 3D printing doesn't solve everything. and we're not really at the point with 3D printing where you can just 3D print and sell stuff directly to market. It's coming. I feel it's approaching. Like color 3D printing is getting better and better every year, but it's not there yet. And so mass production is still a far better way to go for mass production, getting toys made. So I can talk a bit about the mass production process in addition to finding factories. But like a showroom like this is a great way to just find 200 factories very, very quickly. Aside from that, you can still go to Alibaba.com. You can, go to expos like Toy Fair, and you can talk to the factories when they're actually visiting and displaying their work. And so you get to see their quality at the same time as you review their work. So literally, like every kind of toy you can think of that already exists, there's a factory making it. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can actually use their experience and leverage that in order to make what you're making. Okay, so how do you go about this toy process? Well, it all starts with a tool. So, well, it all starts with an idea, really. So the first thing was the idea, which I already showed you guys, was the fungusaurs. And I created these designs in ZBrush, and I painted everything up, and I rendered it in KeyShot, and I printed them out, and we did like this prototype. Let's see, where's the prototype? So here's like the prototype, designed a box, all of this before we even went to a factory, just to kind of get everything ready. Then, when going to the factory, you can follow along, by the way, on any of this stuff on Instagram.com/fungusaurs, because I post updates pretty regularly about factory-related stuff. So first, then they have to 3D print that stuff. And so you've got these 3D prints, and you can either mail them to the factory or they can 3D print their own. And then those are used to create tools. Tools are, let's see here. So tools are basically giant metal boxes that plastic gets poured into, PVC in this case, in order to make the actual physical toys. So I've got some photos and videos here from the tooling place. So here's the tools for fungusaurs. So these are giant metal molds that are pulled apart and pressed together by the industrial injection molding machines. And I can show you guys what the tools look like when opened up, because they're really cool. There we go. Make sure you guys are seeing my stuff. Checking OBS. Yes, that's working. You can make this a bit bigger again so you can see all of my expressionating. Okay. Okay. I am checking your questions on Facebook and Twitch, so keep those coming if you guys have any questions. Sam Peterson Art just asked, what quantities were you doing? I'm making 16,000 toys, Sean. So there's no way in hell I would have been able to print 16,000 toys manually by myself. I already did quite a few when I did the designer con and stuff. I think there's a photo here of all of my prints somewhere. Let me scroll up to find it. No, it's not here. I'm sure that you guys have seen some of my talking about it, but I have like a whole tray full of prints where I printed, something like 30 or 50 toys, but that took me 3 days to just post-process, clean up, and spray paint and get them ready. So mass production, when you're making 16,000 toys, this is the way to go. Injection molding or rotocasting, where they've got this is injection molding. It's when the toy is literally solid, it gets filled. So there's 4 toys made at the same time from this one mold, and this is just for one character. So each character needs a mold of its own, unless sometimes you can mix and match molds. So yeah, I mean, molding and casting is its own different thing. I could do a whole class on that, and I actually do a class on that. If you guys are interested in learning a lot about all these various different types of 3D printing, you can go to Mold 3D Academy, go to all classes. Right now under self-paced, you can check out 3D printing for ZBrush artists. And that's a class that I teach, 8 weeks of lessons where you learn all about 3D printing for everything, outfits and wearables, uh, characters like 6-inch scale miniatures, jewelry, and you can see a bunch of different works from my students. So if you're really interested in learning about 3D printing, slicing, keying, engineering, articulation, all this stuff, check out my class on Mold 3D. In any case, back to the tooling. Since I've got all these photos fresh, and I'm excited to share all of them with you. Let's see here. It's basically, factories are a few different processes. One is all the metalworking. So that factory is in a different location than everything else. Let's see. So the metalworking factory is literally just a bunch of guys that are working with these very large industrial kind of tooling machines that you use a crane to lower the mold into them, and then they fill them with plastic and push the mold apart. The prints drop out. You fill them, you put them close together, fill them with plastic, and then drop them apart. And literally, you can see these dudes are like, working, I'm pretty happy that the factories I chose had good conditions, where it's a lot of ventilation, open doors, bright windows, and you can see like all the work that they're doing on these guys. These molds are very heavy. These are about, they told me the exact weight in kilograms, which is hard for me to convert because I've been living in the States so long, but it was basically 2 of me, and I'm 150, 60 pounds, so they're almost 300 or 400 pounds for each of these. So they're very heavy molds, so you've got to be careful and use all the proper equipment. Once you've got the stuff out of the molds, I can actually show you what some of it looks like because I brought some. So let me scale this down, scale this up. And don't worry, we're going to do a bunch of ZBrushing in the last part of this stream. I'm just kind of excited to share all this stuff I got fresh from the factory. So I can kind of do a little show and tell first. All right, so the paradots that you saw from earlier, let's see, from this tool right here, which I'm kind of blocking with my face, from this tool right here is this character right here. And now let me make this bigger again so you can see. Oh, whoa, okay, here we go. All right, so it'll be a bit blurry on my screen. I'm going to try to get my face out of the way so it'll focus in on the toy. So here's basically the Paradox character, fresh from an injection mold. And what's cool about this is that it basically is very good at not breaking. The toys that I had previously printed, you drop them and then a leg breaks right off. I think I have an example of that right here, where here's the print and a print prototype, and you can see the leg kind of broke right off. It's kind of just shattered because this is a resin print on a Form 2 with the standard gray resin. It isn't even the tough resin or the flexible resin. They have a lot of different printing options, but this is the kind of thing that I didn't want happening, just the prints, the toys breaking. So that's another reason to go with injection molding and rotocasting, is because the toys are much more secure and they're a bit flexible. There's, I don't know if you guys can even see that, but there's quite a bit of flex in this toy and it won't break. It'll kind of just ease back into place. Let me do the other hand so you can see a bit better. So quite a bit of flex in these. So I'm not worried about just dropping these or anything, because it's for kids. I'm making a kid's toy. You need to be able to have a good amount of flex in the material itself. When they come off of out of the tools that you see on the screen right now, when they come out of those metal tools, they're all connected via these sprues. And so this is a different character, Braco, which is a Brachiosaurus mixed with a witch's hat mushroom. I've thought about this. I've thought in detail about this. I've done quite a bit of mushroom research since I've started making this IP. But here's basically a different mold, and they all come out attached like this. So there was another one here, so there was 4 printing all together. And you can see how they print. I mean, not how they print, how they injection mold these guys. So they use 4 different prints, or maybe even 1 print to make 4 different molds, when then they you know, compressed to create that tool, just using probably the lost wax casting method of burning out the wax and prints from inside just by pouring in hot molten metal around something. And then that leaves you with the negative that you then use as the positive to create the tool. But this is basically what they look like. It's kind of like a kid's toy, you know, like, you know, they dangle them above the baby sleeping thing. I don't know. I don't have any kids, so I don't really know what it's called. Crib. There you go. A crib. But here's basically an idea of how the process begins. So they did a few of these to figure out the actual material consistency that worked well for these toys. And then once they figured out the formula for what worked well, wouldn't break, wouldn't shatter, and, you know, did a bunch of lab tests on it to make sure it's kid safe and everything is good, then they started producing the actual finished toys. And here's an example of another character. Another thing to think about is that sometimes the toys need to be sliced and keyed. So here's, sorry, hard to aim the camera. This character's head keys on to the body. So they actually need to do something like this. So there's another part that goes into it, which is engineering the toys. All right. So when it's all said and done, I can show you photos of the rest of the factory. So this was the one side of the factory, an entirely different building that does the metal casting and the injection molding. Then there's the whole other side, which handles the production and assembly. That's the word I was looking for. Okay, so show you a bunch of different photos from that. Close out of all this. Okay, make these icons a bit larger. Huge, large. Okay. So, where do I begin? Okay. So one thing, I was really psyched with the factory that I got to work with, because they made so many dinosaurs. They're really, really big dino nerds. And it was really good to have dino nerds working on my dino toys, because they've got these giant dinosaurs all over the place. They make so many different dino products that they're really the experts at this kind of thing. Let's see. They've got like so many different types of products that they make, dino related, and can show you some more of those. You scroll up to find the right photos. All right. Here's the CEO of the factory that I was working with, and you can see in the background all the little mini toys that they worked on. And he was nice enough to make some tea for us as we hung out and talked all about these toys. And so that's a tea that they make specifically in Shantou region, which is pretty dope. And it's like a whole ceremony where they do this pouring and splashing around of the tea. And then he started showing us all of his dino geeky artifacts. Like, we started talking about dinosaurs for like an hour. There's an Archaeopteryx, the original one that was found in China. And it's basically the transitional fossil that shows dinosaur turning into bird. And then he started showing us all of his dino books. And we just geeked out for a while looking at all the various different types of dino stuff that they have, like dino cups, and random dinos hanging out of walls. And then we started doing the actual factory tour. So here's the finished Fungusaurus blind box toy set. Darn, I hope my screen was a bit smaller when I was showing you all that stuff. Gotta remember to check OBS. Yes, it is. Good. Okay. So here's the finished blind box toy set that I picked up from the factory. So this is the actual finished box that will be in stores hopefully one day. I have to work out all the distribution stuff still. And then here's the individual boxes. So I'm pretty psyched with how all this turned out. My wife, she did all the design work because she's an art director and a damn good one. So she did all of the fonts, the layout, the image, the all the barcode, everything. She basically figured out how to do, and thank God for that because I'm a good 3D artist, but I can't do everything. And when you pull out the toys, they look like that. They come pre-packaged, pre-painted, finished. And so let me show you more photos from that process. Pew, 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 pew. All right, so here is taking a look of the box inside of their showroom. So like I said, Dino Nerds, these are all Dino products that they have in the background there. I was getting a kick out of their environment because they have this giant dinosaur sculpture in the back. And Jakey here, who went with us to see all the toys, he sitting in this scene here, it reminded me a lot of like the Jurassic Park cafeteria scene. You know what I'm talking about? Where the raptor just starts coming from the background while the kids are eating at the cafeteria. All right, so like I said, this factory specializes in a lot of dinosaur specific stuff. And they've got so many different products in that range that they were really the perfect choice to work with for my stuff. So then let me fast forward a bit to the actual production of my stuff. Here's the production line working on assembling the Fungosaurus boxes. So it's actually all manually hand folded and printed and everything's assembled and, you know, taped down. This is kind of the final leg of the process where everything's sealed in packages and put in the boxes. Before that comes the painting. So the painting can be divided up into a lot of stages as well. Here's all the painting assembly line basically on the other side. Actually, it's on the next lane. And what that looks like is this. So there's a lot of hand painting involved in making these toys come to life. Here we go. Yeah. So here's Mike going along with us, helping to translate and take photos. Each painter in the assembly line basically works on one color at a time. So this person is basically doing all of the base layer for this C-Rex toy here. And then the other person is going in and doing the darker bits on the inside. And then another person is doing, you know, even more detail. And it all just kind of slowly starts coming together. So this is just kind of the base coat before even the eyes are painted. Let's see, scrolling down, scrolling down. Keep it going. Okay. So the goal is basically filling up trays and trays worth of, you know, all of the little pieces for the toys. Here's another person working on, no, that didn't work. It's annoying. Here we go. So there's the Braco character. There's some Chick Wrap character. This is the Salamander character. This girl is basically going, only adding this blue line that you see going on in all of these. So it's a lot of hand painting. They let me have a shot at it, painting the Tri-Shroomop's toes here. So I was just going in with white paint and painting the toes one by one. I didn't do that many. But it was cool that they let me give it a shot. And there's me posing with the buckets of finished toys. So the hand painting is one part of the process. It's not all of it. You can see that there is a lot of toys that need to be hand painted, which is why you know, the price point per toy has to be high enough to cover all these people. It's really surreal to see something that came out of your head, like an idea, and then you made it reality via 3D printing, and then you wanted to make it into mass-produced toys, and seeing 30 or so people working on your toys. It's really surreal. Hand painting is one part of the process. The other part of the process is spray painting. So these guys in another part of the factory are spray painting using custom masks to spray paint a lot of these areas. So I can show you a video of some of this stuff because there's just so many photos that I need to go through. Here we go. Here's a cool video. Give that a second to load up. Might have to download it because it's just not seeming to be going. Here we go. It's a bit loud. All right. So what you can see in this video is a custom mask that this, here we go, that this painter is bringing up the head of this tarot cap character into the custom mask, loading it up so only the eye is visible, and then spraying it white. And so then he can kind of put it aside and move on to the next one. And this is only for the left eye. So there's another guy on the other side that's got only the right eye, and then he's doing the custom mask spray painting for the right eye. So it's a lot of, you know, teamwork and collaboration involved to turn all of these orders. It's a lot of toys to make. We're making, I think, 2,000 toys per character. Okay. Close out of some of these. All right. What else can I show you? Not open this file. What do you mean? It's an image. All right. Some of these images are giving my computer trouble. Not sure why. I'll close out of a bunch of these. Maybe there's a limit to how many can be open. Requested resources in use. That's strange. All right, I'm just going to fast forward a bit and see if it opens some other images. Now, darn, it's not letting me open any more images. That's weird. Very weird. But I can fast forward a bit more to show you guys. On Instagram, you can see here's the whole bunch of painters all spray painting this entire room on my Fungosaurus toys. So for me, it was, like I said, really surreal and kind of a proud moment to see everyone working so hard to make my dream a reality. So that was that. And like I said, if you want to watch more of my factory updates, I keep you guys posted on here on Instagram. Let's see here. Some people are saying, love the shirt associated with the brand, the Fungi shirt. Thank you. Sam Peterson Art is asking, how did you go about finding the factory you chose? So I went to a sourcing agency, and I went to several, and I went to basically find, you know, trying to be as responsible as I can in this process, trying to find a good factory that, you know, takes care of its workers, that it has a good gender balance, that doesn't employ kids, that, you know, everyone seems happy at. That's why I actually went to the factory, to make sure that people seemed happy doing what they were doing. I see some comments here, like, you know, I see Milk Abuser talking about, like, you know, how hard it is, this kind of job, for people to do the same coloring one bit day by day by day. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, you know, but it's a job, and this whole town is filled with toy factories. So it actually keeps a lot of people employed in the town. And so basically, for me, doing this order, it's on me to find a good factory that takes care of its people, that, you know, has good work standards, that does take care of not just the people, but the environment seems safe to work in. I've heard some real horror stories about factories where, you're walking through the factory, and everything looks great because they made it look great because the client was arriving that day. And then you step outside and then you see that your shoes have burnt because the floor has so many materials and acid just everywhere that they melted your shoes. So luckily my factory is nothing like that. You got to find, a good factory that takes care of its people, and that's kind of really the best you can do. So yeah, I was pretty happy to see everything, finally done with all the production. The toys aren't all finished yet. They're in the middle of the order. There's about 16,000 toys, like I said, being made, and they're only halfway through the order. So my Kickstarter fulfillment is due for fall and winter. So after all these toys are finished and painted and boxed and then shipped to me, let's see. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Pull this up again. So after the toys are all put into each of these boxes, there's going to be one of each toy in the whole box set at least. So there's 12, and each of the 8 characters has got to be in one of these boxes so that if people buy the whole box, they can get one of each character. I was pretty adamant about that. And it gives people a good fair chance at getting each of the characters in stores, So once this is done, all of these boxes are going to, in fact, be packaged and shipped like this, and they're going to be put inside of a pallet with like a bunch of these boxes. All of these will be filled, and then that pallet is going to get on a boat and shipped from Shantou, probably through Hong Kong Harbor, and then all the way to Long Beach, California. And Long Beach is a port where a lot of this stuff actually arrives, and then from that point, then I'll be able to pick it up and then get it out to distributors here. So that's kind of the whole factory process. I'm sorry I wasn't more organized with all these photos, but like I said, I just got back here. So there's a lot of photos to go through still. Let's see here. Whoop. All right, so I wish I could show more of these photos. They're like not opening up for some reason. This is kind of stuck. Let me open it up again, see if that does the trick. Close out of the folder, because that might be causing it. It's kind of a rule of thumb when you're presenting something that it's going to fight you. Something's going to go wrong in your presentation. You just kind of have to roll with the punches. All right, going to try to pull up some more images. In the meantime, what I want to do today for the stream, it's about 9 o'clock, so I've been streaming for about an hour talking. So now let's start a bit more doing. I'm going to open up some ZBrush and we'll get to sculpting. Yeah, that's really strange. Won't open any more images. Okay, turn off the speaker so that we don't hear those annoying noises. Okay, so a few different options for what we can do today. I've got a bunch of different 3D printing projects going, so I can kind of talk about Fungusaurs and just make another new one because that's kind of been on my mind as well. Let's see. All right, so there's these. This is how my process starts. It often starts with really shitty 2D sketches because I'm a sculptor and even my drawings are very sculptural. So I kind of, keep adding lines until I start forming some shape so it starts coming out of the page. So there's the Stegosaurus that I had done. And actually, you know what? I should show you guys that first because we didn't really finish it. So here's the Stegosaurus model, the drawing that I did. And I cut it into this for reference. I brought this image into ZBrush and sculpted this out. So this is one of my first streams on ZBrush. So in fact, if you guys want to see the prior streams, you can go to pixellogic.com ZBrushLIVE presenters, And you can see all the awesome artists that are streaming on here. I always try to watch Shane Olsen's. There's a lot of really cool artists here. So you can click on any of them and you can see their past streams. If you scroll down, you'll find me, Aiman Akhtar, and you can go into the past broadcasts, scroll down, see a bit more of my work, and see all the streams that I've done. So the first few streams were just different fungusaurs. Then I switched gears to the Aquaman outfit projects. But you can check out the older streams here, where I go into really detail on how I make these guys. And so there's basically the model that I ended up making. And then make sure I can go to the other images. So then I basically put it in Preform, which is my 3D printing software for the Form 2, and then I did a test print. I also then went into doing color. So if you check out the previous streams, I believe is this one. Let's see. Now this is me already doing the Aquaman project. Oh no, here we go. All right, so in this stream, I go into detail about my process for remeshing and then UV mapping just in UV Master and ZBrush, and then starting to do the paint. So kind of hand painting it all out until I get to a result that I'm happy with. Adding in the darks and shadows and lights by hand. Figuring out the color scheme, deciding whether or not I want to add more stripy features or not. And at the end, kind of rendering it out in Keyshot to kind of see what is the best finished result that I like. So this is part of the concept process. Sean's asking, have you ever used the free Formlabs software that links to ZBrush? That's kind of what I did here, Sean. I used the 3D plugin in ZBrush to send this to print. So in ZBrush, what Sean's referring to is there in the 3D Print Hub under Z plugin, 3D Print Hub, there is a send to Preform. And Preform is the software for the Form 2 printer, which can help, which basically takes your ZBrush model, sends it directly to the printer. But anyways, at the end of that previous stream, I finished the model and I sent it up to Shapeways. And so this model was put up to Shapeways to get the final color printout from them. And I basically did it in full color sandstone. And I didn't get to show you the finished print because it hadn't arrived yet, but now it has. Took a few weeks to arrive in the mail. And so I can show you the finished print from Shapeways as compared to the original print that I did. So let's make this screen a bit larger. So if you're interested in learning more about full color 3D printing, watch that previous stream because I don't want to repeat the whole thing. But this is the first prototype that I had done on my Form 2, all printed out and final. Sorry, having a hard time finding the camera. I'm gonna find a good solution that prevents it from like blurring this out so much while I'm showing it to you guys. Maybe I just need to like put some sort of piece of paper between the image and my face, and that way it'll actually focus on the toy. So there's the 3D print from the Form 2 machine. Few things I noticed from this was that the legs were a bit thin and spindly, and I didn't like that. So even though in design they look kind of cool, it didn't work when I was actually printing them out. So I updated the design, and then here's the finished 3D print from Shapeways, the full color print. So it's actually a pretty cool print. In hand, total. About the right scale for one of my toys. Maybe a bit larger. But let's see. I want to try that right now. Now that I'm thinking about it, what can I use as a backdrop so you can see the toys more in focus? I'm going to use this and see if this idea works. All right. So I'm going to put this up so that there's like a whole wall not looking at my face anymore. And then I'll put the toy up here. Aha! Kind of works. It's focusing on the toy. Kind of, sort of. Anyways, I think you guys get the idea. The full color 3D printing is getting better and better every year. This is Shapeway's matte color. They have like a glossy version too, which is basically, I think they do the same kind of printing, and then they spray coat it with something. But I didn't want this guy to be too shiny. There. So in any case, there's the finished print of what it ended up being. And now that I've got that kind of prototype, now I can think about what I'm going to do with it. Like, is this going to be a Fungusaurus Series 2, or am I going to keep designing other ones until I get a good set that I like? Each of these characters, eventually, my hope is to make actual models for them that I'll be using for the augmented reality game that I'm working on as well. So I'll show you guys that process in the next stream or the stream after, how to go in ZBrush to retopology and actually to a game model. I'm going to pack this away. Okay. Lazy Sloth is asking, which mushroom is that dino? So this one, I was going for a greenish one, and I kind of picked based on really how I feel like at the time. Sometimes I think, okay, I have to pick a very specific mushroom because I want a specific story to tell, because some mushrooms are great filter cleaners, like they can actually clean the environment by filtering water. Other mushrooms are really good at decomposition. Other mushrooms glow in the dark. This one for the Stegosaurus, I just picked because it was green. I don't have the exact name for you. I will find that and tell you later. All right. Luciano Prato saying you must use the fast tone freeware image viewer. I'm not sure what that is. Xander's asking, could you talk about the VR app that was created for Fungusaurus? Xander, I want to, but I feel like I'm going to go into that probably next week. It's an augmented reality app. It's not VR just yet. It's AR. And I'll talk about that probably next week in the stream, because at that point it'll be more not about the factories and toy production, but more about my head will be more in the game space. So I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. Okay, cool. Looking at the questions, sweet. What limitations do you have in mind for final painting, designing with colors? So I can open up the model here so we can take a look and see. But there are limitations definitely for what you can do when you're doing mass production. So in 3D printing and 3D printing color, I can go a lot more detailed than I can guarantee the mass production will be able to hit. This one. ZBrush taking its sweet time. There we go. Oh, chugging right now. Chugging and crashing. Oof. Must have too many things open. Nope, just ZBrush and Maya. I guess I had a bunch of other random things. All right, let's try that again. Open ZBrush. Oh, you know what? That's probably why it wasn't letting me open any images, because I had a video open from a previous file from that same directory. That's so strange. Computers are supposed to make you faster, man. All right, going back to the ZBrush streaming. Going to, I believe it was stream 3. Open up that model. All right, here we go. Switch off from my red Sculpey to more of my skin shaded material. So here's the final paint work that I did for the Stego model. Stego Shroom. I haven't really come up with the name just yet. And just from showing it to the factory, because I took this with me, the print prototype, they suggested, already they're suggesting, changes for mass production, such as getting rid of these holes so it can be kind of a solid model, and adjusting these guys, the spikes down here, to be more rounded or thicker so that they'll be less likely to break. Also, for these fingers, they suggested I try to fill in the gaps a bit more. So if I follow the factory's recommendations, I'd do something like this. Probably easy way to close this off is to select a mask, probably a mask lasso around this area, invert that mask, and just move it down. And kind of bury it into the existing mesh a bit, so that when I Dynamesh this next time around, it's going to fill that in. And that way I can kind of close all these holes. But to me, that's less appealing, So that's the problem with thinking like a 3D printing artist and then going to mass production, is that there's a lot of stuff that you have to often change for mass production. That doesn't bother me so much. It's a bit clown feedy, but it still, fits within the model. It still looks appealing. I probably could even inflate these without too much issue. Like this doesn't bother me. Having to update the design slightly. But anything that requires a massive change, like filling in these holes up here, that kind of takes away from the appeal of the model. So it doesn't look as good to me. Also, not sure if the factory will be able to hit all of this spray painty kind of dotty texture. We'll have to figure out a workflow for doing that. Because a lot of the fungus shores are pretty smooth, so we might actually keep them smooth, or we might go with adding a bit more of this dotty texture for the next series, It's kind of like every time you do a production, you figure it out a bit better and a bit better, and you figure out what you're going for. The eyes might be a challenge for them, because they're kind of concave like that. Like if I fill this with a flat color, if it'll let me. Oh, you know what? It's probably got a texture map on. There you go. Okay. So if you look at the model and you see how the eyes are kind of concaved in, this makes it easy for when they're printed and for when you have a physical product to see the detail because it's in the model. However, it actually makes painting a bit harder because they're going to have to get in there with hand and see if they can print in that black, a bit of that specular highlight. So when I do go into mass production for this guy, it'll probably become a bit muted. Like the color will become a bit simplified, it'll become a bit smoother, and they might have to lose some of the detail. But that's a reasonable back and forth that you have to go through when you're talking about making a lot of them, because next time I might not be making 2,000. If this series gets picked up and I get a good amount of distribution, I might be making 20,000. So when you're mass producing, you have to think about those things that, it's a reasonable request back and forth. What can they do? What do I want? And come to a good compromise in the middle. But in any case, I'm happy that I was able to show you guys through the streams this character come from start to kind of a finished prototype. Switch this up. So what I wanted to do right now is get started on a new character. Not that. This one. Here we go. Okay, so this is an iguanodon. An iguanodon is one of those dinos which not a lot of people know about, but it's one of my favorite dinosaurs because it always looks like it's giving a thumbs up or a haka. It's a duck-billed dinosaur. It's one of the later Jurassic or even like after Jurassic period. You do see it in Jurassic Park up here for a little bit, but it's got that very distinctive duck kind of beak, and it's a herbivore, but it's a very big one. Like I think the only thing that hunted these guys was a T-Rex or an Allosaurus, like a relatively really big dinosaur. And like I said, because it's always giving a thumbs up, I kind of wanted to draw it out as even more fun, like, yeah, giving thumbs up dinosaur. So let's start sculpting this guy up and prototyping it, and you can see a bit of that process again. So I'll put this off to the side. Sean's asking if I've done a Dilophosaurus yet. I did start one, Sean. If you check out the previous streams, I think it was stream 4 or maybe 2. Aha, this one, yeah. So in stream 2, I started a Dilophosaurus. I haven't finished it just yet because I still have to figure out the clinks of how I'm actually doing the mouth kind of flaying out. But you can see a bit of the detail here. So I kind of figured out like a pose that I like, and I figured out a character that I like, but sometimes in my process it helps to take my eyes off the character and come back to it. And that's why I like working multiple characters at the same time, because then you also create a visual language across the entire series that you're happy with, and they all look consistently alike. So that's the good thing about doing a personal project, is that you can kind of take your time and do it the way you want it to and make sure that everything looks right. This was actually a suggestion from the stream. I think it was Kurt suggested giving vampire teeth, so I did, and it looks hilarious. All right, so for now, what I want to do is get started on this Iguanodon character. So the first thing is to just kind of crop through this. Change up the levels. Brighten, darken a bit. You can even like duplicate it and put it on as like a multiply or an overlay. Probably a multiply. That looks pretty good. Might brighten up a bit of that middle so it doesn't bug me. Perfect. All right, so that looks good. I'm going to save that out into ZB Streaming. Can't believe it's already stream 7. Is it stream 7 or is it still stream 6? Nope, it is stream 7. Okay, I'm going to save this as Iguano. As a JPEG, that's probably all right now for me. I'm going to go into ZBrush, import that in now. And add it to Spotlight. One thing I do as soon as I add something to Spotlight, I have to go under my brush, under my modifiers. I think it's under brush. I always have to remember where it's at. It's under samples. There we go. And you have to turn off Spotlight projection, because otherwise it won't let you really sculpt. You can't smooth when Spotlight projection is on. But it's a really good way of bringing in reference image as an image plane kind of thing. So once you've brought it in, scale it down, move it off to the side. I might make the whole thing a bit larger. My canvas is a bit small here, so I'm going to double the size of my canvas. Move this over to the side. Okay, so that gives me a plenty good amount of working space. I can shrink down the streaming video as well, so you'll be able to see more of the sculpting phase. So I'm going to start. There's a few different ways to start. Now, obviously, I could start with a sphere and just jump right in and get into it. But I want to be working at a similar kind of scale as the existing fungosaurs. So I'm going to start with a previous fungosaur. So this one's actually just fine, the stego, because what matters to me is the scale, not really anything to do with the design of it. I don't need a base mesh because I want to be pretty free and creative as I sculpt. But I'm going to just use this. I'll clone it. And that can be my starting mesh. You can turn off the texture map. I can even Dynamesh it. Geometry, Dynamesh. I don't know, 300 resolution is what it was set to prior, but that seems pretty high. So I'm going to set it to 100. That still is pretty high. Let's see. Might need to smooth a bit. Yeah, if your Dynamesh doesn't do anything right away, you need to smooth a little bit or just touch the model, because Dynamesh doesn't work when you haven't made any new changes. All right, so that's about 253K polys. I'm going to duplicate this and just use that as a starting point. Save as Iguana1. And again, which mushroom I'm using is kind of secondary to the actual creating an appealing character. That's the most important thing, is finding an appeal, finding a character worth making. Once I figured that out, then I want to figure out which mushroom I want to use and be a bit more scientific with it as to where I want this character to be on Earth, what kind of role do I foresee in this character for the story I want to tell. So picking the mushroom is almost secondary. It involves more research and more time. So first is just create an appealing sculpt, an appealing character. All right, so with that there, I'm going to start moving it around. So turn on X for symmetry, and let's start basically trying to create the shapes that I'm after. I do like the legs, and I like the tail, so I can kind of leave that around, although I can probably get rid of some of these pieces because I don't need them. And you know what? Let's play some music while we're doing this. All right, let's see. Checking out your questions. Do you use Michael Dunham's XMD toolbox? I'm not sure about that. No, I have not. For scale, Shane mentioned that they had a shipping box subtool that could be used to ensure the proper scale was consistent. That's a great idea. Just bring in basically the box size that you're going for. That's a good idea. I should do that. Let's see. Have I used Sculptris Pro? I have used Sculptris Pro. I like it. I'm used to the Dynamesh workflow, so I kind of just keep going with that. Sculptris Pro is right up here in my custom UI. And I turn it on time to time. It's probably useful right now, so shit, let's try it. Why not? All right, but the first thing I want to do is kind of hide some of these pieces because I don't need so much stuff. I don't need any of that stuff along the back, so I'm just going to kind of hide all of those. I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, and Delete Hidden. Now you see I've got that on my UI. So guys, if you make a custom UI, this will go much faster for you. Dynamesh again, so it fills all of that. And you see Sculptris Pro, depending on the scale of your brush, it'll actually change the topology as you sculpt. So if I had a smaller brush, you can see it adds more detail when I smooth. If I have a larger brush, it'll smooth away more detail, but it's going to also change the topology pretty heavily. I don't really care about this topology right now because it's kind of just the start phase, so I don't mind using Sculptris Pro and just figuring it out as I go. So how do we go about this? Well, in order to change the pose of the model, I'm just going to alpha mask different sections, soften the mask, and then use my transpose tools. So it'll take a second for me to just get this looking the way I want to. So what I'm going to do first is just put on some music. And that'll be like the last half hour of the stream, is I'll just kind of zone out, stop talking as much, and then just sculpt a bit. All right. All right. Music is on. All right. Checking the questions on Facebook. I feel like I rely a bit more on Twitch more often. Okay, cool. That's all good. Twitch is all good. Arkle Piers is asking beer. Nope, this is just a nice swell bottle that ZBrush gave me, and it's got nothing but good old H2O. It's too early here, man. It's LA. So right now it's like 9:30 a.m. Alright. I'm still a big fan of the good old transpose tools, so I'll use those when I want. That's pretty fun already. Transpose tools are really all about where you place your gear. And that'll determine how much it rotates and where the pivot is. Inflating here to fill this in, smoothing out again. Dynameshing whenever I want to as well, because this is kind of just an exploratory phase. I have my symmetry turned on as well, and I'm just figuring out, you know, the proportions of the character, how this character stands, the anatomy a little bit. Probably need like larger feet so it'll actually be able to hold up the weight. Thinking about engineering as I sculpt. Cool, cool. In my reference, I can see that it's a pretty round, pudgy character, so that's what I should go for. I wanted the tail to kind of swing around the backside as well, just to be kind of more fun. Let's start doing that as well. Start swinging that tail. Whoop. There we go. Pretty extensive. Swing. And I can rotate. Figure out the floor plane. There we go. Dynamesh that again. Start smoothing again. I do want there to be a wrinkle, just not there. I wanted there to be a bit of a longer neck in the character, so I can start squishing that in. Give him more of a headroom. Whoa. Yeah, Sculptress Pro is kind of like playing with fire. Probably not, shouldn't be sculpting with the skin shade material on. It'll freak me out. All right, look at that. Fun. Getting some asymmetry already, which is not a bad idea. Although, change this model up probably several times before I'm completely happy with it. I like this. He's kind of like a sumo wrestler right now, like, whoo. That's a fun idea. Sumo wrestler dinosaur? See, these are the kind of things that happen when you stream. You get some fun ideas. Aquapire says, good morning then. Thank you. Sean saying it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Don't I know it? Alright, so you can see while I'm sculpting these legs out, I want it to be a pretty large so that it can hold up the weight of the character. Not really caring yet about exact ground plane, but if I do, I can just clip it. And any area that I want to fill in, you can just kind of use my clay, fill that in, and clip again, or I can use my trim adaptive. Just flatten that. Alright, paying too much attention to the feet, and they don't matter right now. What matters is getting more of the character and the flow of it. So, I need to lower the arms down like in the reference. I'm going to select my mask lasso, grab those arms, invert, and move down. Like so, probably. That way I can give this character more of a neck now. Inflate this area up a bit. Still looks like he's doing sumo. I kind of like what's happening here in the front with the neck. It's almost like a Gila monster or something like that. I might play with that. Start changing up the proportions of the face because I want this to be more of a duck-billed dinosaur. Longer snout. Not really caring if I destroy the eye detail right now. It's more about figuring out the larger shapes. You got to figure out the big before you figure out the small. I know I want like some big eyebrows for him, like ridges, so that he can kind of do this, you know, expression. He's got to be expressive. And then this is for whatever shroom I end up putting on his head. That might look fun. It's kind of got like a slick back haircut, kind of like a character from Greece or something. Oh yeah. I do like the tongue sticking out, so I want to kind of keep that. Although I already have that on Stego. But let's see if it can make tongue sticking out on 2 characters in a series. Easy way to distinguish is I could probably just mirror it. So I'll go to my subtool master and click mirror. There we go. So now the tongue's mirrored on the other side. Kind of like that. Also, I'm thinking I want him to have his head rotated a bit. Needs a leather coat, definitely. Arkle Pyres is saying the only thing I think they should get us a close holes cancellation. That's a good call. I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes you want a Dynamesh, but you don't want it to close holes. I'm just going to rotate the head entirely. Move it into place. Rotate back a bit. Let's fill in again. Dynamesh again. Smooth again. So if you break it down into just simple shapes, what I'm seeing is a head, a round body, and the legs and the tail. That's what I'm after right now. It's thinking about the simple shapes. And really exaggerating those too. Like I want the circle of this body to look just like a big circle. All these fungosaurs are supposed to be kind of like babies anyways, like kids. So I don't want them to look like too adult. I want them to have like a disproportionately large head size. That if I make that hump too high, then he looks more like a bodybuilder. He looks too beefy. So I have to think about the character as well as I'm sculpting this. I want him to be kind of derpy, not strong. I do like this little hanging from the neck though. Try to play that up, we'll see. We'll see if I like it later. It might be too much detail. Thinking about how the tail would actually create wrinkles on the body as it goes. We're not really at this detailing stage, but I like to think about all that stuff as I sculpt. Make the tail a bit thicker and bigger too. Already pretty cute and appealing. Cool. Save that out. Let's give him some thumbs, give him some eyes, give him some expressions. I think I want him to be looking kind of like towards us as he's kind of smiling and giving us that thumbs up. So you can see I'm pretty much just switching between my damn standard tool, my clay tool. I'll put actual eyes in there later. But right now I just kind of want to look at the expression. See if it works. Get rid of RGB. Get the damn standard up. You can see my X symmetry doesn't really matter anymore because it doesn't really work anymore. So that's alright. Don't really need it to be symmetrical right now. get basically a hint of what the eyelid is going to be under there. I like this puffy cheek, so I want to puff that out a bit more. It's a nice balance trying to find the derpiness of a character. All right. Round out those legs even more, make them more baby legs. All right, let's start giving him some thumbs. Actually, you know what? Let me finish this eye, because that's going to bug me. Obviously, he's looking in that direction. So there's really no tact to this stage right now. It's just kind of beating the clay into submission. Like, give me what I want. But that's a very valid part of the process. Sometimes you just got to fight through it, and that's kind of the concepting. That's why concepting can be so fun sometimes. Because you're solving a problem as you go. I always think about like when these eyelids intersect, what should it look like? Should they just meet up, or should they overlap, or might be an actual thing to research. Trying a different kind of eye right now. Since the factory is suggesting to not have concave eyes, let's see what other kinds we could do. You got to take factory suggestions with a grain of salt, because at the end you're the client and they have to do what you want. But it's important to try to work with them, you know? Because they're the experts. They're the ones that have been doing it for years. The mass production. But at the end, my main goal is to have an appealing character. And if I don't get that, then there's no point. The thing with wrinkles you got to be careful of is it doesn't make the character look too old. So you got to choose which wrinkles you do. You can't just throw in wrinkles everywhere. That's better. Getting some more shapes. Now, does Iguanodon have ears? That is a good question. I don't know if they have ears. It's like a reptile, you know. They probably have like the slit right there more than an actual ear. But we'll come back to that question when I do some research on Iguanodon. because I've got a bunch of reference images pulled up on my left-hand monitor, but it's not enough. They don't have ear reference. I'll have to talk to a paleontologist. Alright, it's looking more and more fun. I don't like these ear holes for now, so I'm going to get rid of them. More trouble than they're worth sometimes. And now that I've got this sort of blocked in, let's start giving him some thumbs. Yes, the material is RS Sculpey. That's Ralph Stump's Sculpey material. I think you can get it from the ZBrush plugin store. And if it's not there, just Google Ralph Stump materials. It's one of my favorite ones to sculpt in. All right. This is pretty cool too, actually. He's like, excellent. Actually, might not be a bad idea in terms of like thinking for factory production, bringing their arms together, kind of like together like that, like Nubby. But then the thumbs up won't read as well. So maybe I'll do that for a different character. You know what? I kind of want to rotate these down and then pull a new thumb up. So I'll leave these fingers kind of as fingers. There we go. It's working much better. Give them the sense of actual having hands. It's always fun to turn feet into hands. Never works perfectly. Yeah, thumbs up. That's so funny. This is good and important when your work can entertain you. Let's simplify. Think about the shapes more. Take my eyes off of it, go to somewhere else, come back to it. All right, back of the hands then. Whoa, okay. Now I'm trying to think if I want him to do like fists, and if I want him to have fingers, and if those fingers are going to close all the way. Let's see. Look at some more reference on here. So in this one, the fingers are relatively long, but this is a reference of a toy. So let's actually take a look at a reference of Iguanodon. So it looks like they have kind of, I mean, this is all obviously renderings. We don't actually know exactly what their anatomy was like, but paleontologists have a pretty good idea. And a lot of these models are based on paleontological reference. So you can see that they have kind of fingers that they can close. Kind of like hoof almost, you know? But there's the big spiky thumb. They always look like they're giving a thumbs up to me. That's totally a thumbs up Saurus. That might be the way to go. Just kind of do mittens. Not have the fingers all splayed out. That'll be impossible for mass production. That much splaying. Alright, pull this off to the side again. Let me check in on the questions you guys have. What's going on Facebook and Twitch. All right. Sean saying great and fast sculpt. Thank you, man. Looking awesome. Sweet. Fresh blueberry breakfast. Ooh, okay. Enjoy that, my man. Let's see. ZBrush modeling clay material. That's a solid one. Cool, cool. Should do some tourist fungus shores with Hawaiian shirts. What? That's brilliant. We'll see about that. Okay. Looks like someone's already posted a link in the Twitch chat for the material. Yeah. So ZBrush's MatCap library in the download center. You can check out all the materials on here. I think Ralph's material might be on here. This is the lay material. I use that sometime. Here we go. RS Sculpey down here. So if you want to get the material I'm using, you can go right down to there. Pixelogic.com, download center, and then MatCaps. All right, cool. That looks weird. See, it's part of my process to actually look away from what I'm doing and then look back. So in that sense, streaming actually works with my process pretty well. Because if you keep looking at something constantly, you don't really know if you're getting it. You don't know if it's working. I kind of like that stuck to the head look more. I might even push the mushroominess of the top. But we'll see. That depends on when I decide what kind of mushroom I want to use. At that point, I might do something really obvious, kind of like that. Which doesn't look bad either. I don't know if it's the way I want to go yet. So let's keep it flat down. We're approaching 10 o'clock. Almost done time for the stream, because I've got to actually head to work. But I'm going to finish these hands before that. Got to make sure symmetry is turned on, otherwise it won't do both at the same time. But since I'm already kind of flying on this, I might just do the one hand and then have it mirrored over for the other side. Give him a bit of a shoulder wrinkle there too. Figure out where the elbow for the character is going to be. Probably somewhere around here, because if he's twisting his arm. And the hand actually starts right there. Got to think about the anatomy. Even if it is only an imaginary creature, got to think about the anatomy. So that's probably where the elbow is going to be. Give him a bit of more of a palm. It's like if he did have a real thumb, he'd probably have a palm thing there. Scientists used to speculate that these guys used their thumbs to, they were kind of horn thumbs, so they use them to like stab and defend themselves. All right, let's go ahead and see only what I'm working on. That way I can finish that part better. You may have noticed I've got backface masking on for when I sculpt the fingers with clay. That way it won't affect the other side. Because if I didn't have backface masking on, it would just destroy the other side. It's looking pretty cute. Digging it. Since I want him to be kind of baby-like, you gotta have like a bit of baby fat going on. There we go. Stretch out that elbow a bit more so it actually looks like it's a limb. Stretch out that bicep a bit more so I can see kind of the insertion points or where it would be going. Think about the flow of the anatomy. Stylized creature, but still. No deltoid on this creature. I'm just kind of doing a fold of fat around the shoulder. Just trying to make him pudgy. There we go. Now keep in mind, these characters are going to be 3 inches tall when printed, so it's not really a lot that I need to think about in terms of detail. However, if I do want to turn this into an animated series one day, if I do want to, you know, have them all as characters in a game, I need that detail. So I got to think about it. That's pretty good. Yeah, looks like an arm. I shrink this down a bit. Hands are getting too big. You know what they say about big hands? Nothing. Okay. So this is kind of cool. It's kind of turning into a bit of curled fingers anyways. So I'm going to run with that. All right. Yeah. Exaggerate those thumb spikes a bit. Really make it look like he's giving us a thumbs up. Give him some knuckles, even though I don't know if they have knuckles. Probably good to have more realistic arms and then work backwards. All right. It's looking pretty dope. All right, I'm going to mirror that over. I'm going to select that, duplicate it, delete hidden, Z plugin, subtool master, mirror on the x-axis so I can get them on the other side. Delete that tool I used to help make them. Turn that back on. Get rid of some of this. Whoa. Get back all the stuff I want. Delete hidden there. Turn that on. Merge down. And Dynamesh again. Now with all that merged in, we'll kind of even work with symmetry, which is good. All right. I'm going to hide some of this detail. the Sculptris Pro, you got to turn it back on. Let's see here. Realize it kind of disappears. All right, got symmetry working, got both arms giving the thumbs up. Work out some of these details later. Make his body look even more circular, or spherical, I guess. We're working in 3D after all. Got a good amount of asymmetry going. Pinch that. Pull it up a bit. Make those legs a bit larger. And just thinking about the way they're aimed, they should be able to hold up the weight better if they're triangular, kind of aimed outward. So I'll do that. Always thinking about engineering when you're thinking about a 3D print. It's got to come to reality. It's got to be a real life thing some point. Inflate that up a bit. All right. Bring that tail down a bit. Get a more of a smooth curve going here. I'll have to come back and revisit the eyes later once I kind of know what I'm going for. But I'm digging his expression already. Let's give him a big smile. He can be the happy Fungosaurus. Or one of them. Why not have more than one happy one? Okay, cool. I kind of want these thumbs to be pointing even more up so that you can kind of tell that it's giving a thumbs up, not straight forward, but slightly upward. But it is time for me to start signing off, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Tune in next week to see where this guy goes and where we take some more of the new ones, because I want to make a whole new series with you guys. There we go. Yeah. Got a trapezius thing going on right now. But all things to figure out in time. That's kind of interesting, actually. Sweet. Can have his eyes do a bit of smiling too. That might be fun. Inflate that up, move it up. Smile is much more than just a expression of the mouth. It's a kind of whole face thing. So you got to think about that too. When you're sculpting a smile, what are the eyes doing? You have to find the balance. All right. The problem with getting into sculpting so late into the stream is that I want to go much further, but no time. All right. We'll have to continue him next week. or just on my own and show you guys the update. And then actually try to match them better to the reference, because right now it's just a mess. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Signing out. Thanks so much for showing up to the stream, guys, and hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys next week. Later.